Hello campers, this is the Suburban Camper and this is a video on how to buy a used Chevrolet Suburban, specifically the 9th generation Suburban, which was produced from the 2000 to 2006 model years. The first step is to prepare yourself to navigate the used car market. I've bought and sold many used cars over the years and I've learned a lot of lessons. I capture what I've learned in my used car buying guide at my website, suburbancamping.com. Please review this information before you start searching for your Suburban. This video features the Suburban Buying Guide and the Suburban Inspection Checklist, which makes it one of my longer videos. Please note I will be producing separate videos on these two topics, so if you only need info on one of those topics, you can check those videos out. So let's talk specifics on the Suburban. First, the trim levels, which are LT and LS. LT is the higher end package, which is what my Suburban has, and I really enjoy the extras that come with it, such as leather, heated seats, and sunroof. The fact is, for a vehicle in this age range, these extras won't cost much more, and therefore I highly recommend going with an LT model. Next is the 1500 versus 2500 series. I've been very tempted with trading up to a 2500 because I love powerful engines, but the fact is I really don't need the bigger engine or a beefed up suspension. The 5.3 liter engine in the 1500 provides plenty of power and hauling capacity, and let's face it, the gas mileage is already pretty bad enough, so the 2500 is only going to make it worse. What about two-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive? You may not use four-wheel drive a lot, but you know if you need it and don't have it, you will regret not going with four-wheel drive. I've used mine quite a bit, so I highly recommend it. Also, please note if you expand your search to include the GMC Yukon XL, the Denali package features all-wheel drive and does not have the push-button four-wheel drive option. It is a bit rare, but there was a Z71 option for the 9th generation Suburban. This is an off-road package with a few more options, such as an extra skid plate along with beefed up suspension. I would classify this package as nice to have, but not something you need to seek out unless you'll be doing a lot of serious off-road driving. That covers off on the Suburban options, so now I will dive into some general guidelines for buying a Suburban. During your search, you will come across customized Suburbans. These customizations typically fall into two categories: add-ons, such as cargo racks, brush bars, and lights, and mechanical, such as engine modifications, exhaust, wheels, tires, and suspension. The rule I have always followed when buying a used vehicle is to buy something as close to stock as possible. The reason is this is how the manufacturer designed the vehicle to perform safely and efficiently, and if it's stock, there'll be plenty of resources to get repairs done at a reasonable price. However, I'm not saying customizations can't improve a vehicle. I'm just pointing out when it comes to add-on customizations, you need to decide whether the add-on meets your needs and is therefore worth the extra money the seller is likely asking for it, and whether it has been installed properly and it's working. And regarding mechanical customizations, I highly recommend you get the work checked out before you buy the Suburban. An important step to making your search easier is to narrow your search by establishing your budget and then deciding how far you're willing to drive to purchase a Suburban. Then, always stick to those parameters when searching. I also recommend sticking to no more than 3 sources when searching, otherwise it just becomes exhausting trying to stay on top of all the listings. As you search, you also need to do your research. Even though you are focused on the 9th generation, there are differences in model years, so once you identify a specific Suburban, focus your research on that model year. On the Suburban Buying Guide page at suburbancamping.com, I have a list of websites you can use for research. Also, be sure to review my common repairs page so you know what to be on the lookout for during your search. When you are searching and checking out a Suburban, you should follow your first impression. The 9th generation Suburban will be 15 to 21 years old, so don't expect like new condition. But if your first impression is the Suburban has not been well maintained, you should keep looking or walk away. When you find a Suburban and want to go check it out, I recommend you thoroughly inspect it before you take it for a test drive. As you inspect, politely review issues with the seller to try and gain consensus and determine if they have factored the issue into the price. If there is significant pushback, then the seller is probably not willing to negotiate, and it's probably a waste of your time to take a test drive. And finally, if you get to the test drive stage, then when you're behind the wheel, you should feel like you are the king of the road. The ride should be quiet and smooth, and you should feel a strong sense of control regarding cornering and stopping, and the steering should be easy. Keep in mind it requires a lot of pedal to access the power. Alright, that wraps up the Suburban buying guide portion of this video. I hope it will help you identify and locate a Suburban to meet your needs, preferably a stock LT model with one owner, low mileage, and a solid maintenance history. Alright, we've done our homework, and here is a Suburban we are interested in. I will be utilizing my Suburban inspection checklist to thoroughly check it out. You can download this checklist for free at suburbancamping.com. Okay, I have a flashlight, a towel to lie on, some gloves, paper towels, and my OBD2 reader, so I am ready to inspect. First thing I'm going to do is quickly walk around the vehicle to assess overall condition and form a first impression. It appears clean. Yeah, a bit of a scratch there, a little scuff, nothing too deep. Paint is shiny. No obvious dents on this side. This side's looking good. Tires and wheels look good. Glass looks good. My first impression is good. Now let's take a closer look at the exterior. I will focus on one thing at a time. I want to make sure the body is straight, so I will closely look down each side from the front and the rear. Okay, this side is looking really good. Let's move over to the other side. Very nice. Nothing sticks out to me there. And we'll move around to the rear of the vehicle and do the same thing. Look down each side. First the driver's side. Looking good there. And then the passenger side. That all checks out. The second thing as far as the initial inspection is the interior, and the first thing I do when I get inside is take a nice deep smell. I don't smell smoke or wet dog, so let's proceed on down the checklist. First, all the seats. The driver's seat has some normal wear and tear, but also this plastic molding has come loose on the back and it's sticking out a bit. I'm going to sit back in this seat again to make sure it's not a major problem. Okay, it's fine, but noted. Let's fast forward and check all the other seats. Good. Good. And good. I will check the headliner first up front. This is in great shape. A little dirty back here. That will clean up fine. Overall, very nice. And now I will check the back. Looking good. One small tear there. No big deal. On to the dashboard, trim, and door panels. A little bit of peeling on the dash. Nothing major. Center console looks nice. And this door is in great condition. So is this one. Bit of a gouge on this door, otherwise it looks fine. And the driver door has a small stain, but hardly noticeable. Dash up here is all good. Let's check the trim condition in the back. Some scratches here and there, but solid on both sides. I will remove the floor mats so we can get a closer look at the carpet and floorboard conditions. Okay, the carpet's a bit dirty, but about what I expect for a 20-plus-year-old vehicle. Let's knock on the floorboard to see if we get any signs of rust. Nope. I will fast forward as I repeat the process all the way around. Good here. This checks out. And this looks and sounds great. Let's take a look at the carpet in the back. It's all in good shape. Okay, now before we go any further, it's time to pause and ask yourself the question, is your impression so far good or bad. If it's bad, there really is no reason to move forward. So far, my impression is good, so let's keep on inspecting. Let's take a look at the engine. First, I will check for oil leaks and coolant leaks on the top side of the engine. The valve covers are seeping oil a bit. Normal for this age of vehicle, but will need to be addressed. Let's check the condition of the belts and hoses. They're all in good condition, and I see no signs of coolant leaks. I will check the oil level. It's okay, a little low, looks pretty clean. Sticker says it's due for an oil change, so this is what I would expect to see. I'm also checking the oil filler cap for signs of sludge, and I will take a peek down the filler tube to see if there are signs of sludge on the top side of the engine. That looks good. Now the coolant level, that's good. Now let's look to see if there's any noticeable oil sheen. Nope. Let's finish up on the fluids and check brake fluid and power steering fluid. All good. And finally, I will take a peek at the underside to see if I see any oil dripping off the skid plate. It is nice and clean. Okay, let's fire it up. Any smoke coming out the tailpipe? Nope. What does it sound like under the hood? What is that sound? Sounds like the dreaded lifter tick of the 5.3 liter engine. It's known for that. Okay, I have definitely noted it. Let's rev it up and see how it sounds. Sounds strong. And no smoke coming out the back. Okay, now it's time to pause one more time and ask yourself a question again. Is anything you have discovered thus far a deal breaker? If there's something you can't live with or have the desire to fix, then there's really no reason to move forward. My answer is no, so I'm moving forward. I will fast forward through this next step, which is checking panel spacing to look for uneven gaps, which may be an indicator of an accident. I will run my finger over all the gaps to make sure it is consistent, and then I will check under the hood to make sure everything is straight on each side and the body parts are original. I'm also looking for any signs the vehicle has been repainted. Good to go there, so now I will do the same type of check under the rear hatch. I will check both sides and the top section. This all looks good. Now make sure there are no signs of repainting by looking across all the panels on both sides of the vehicle to make sure the colors match. And then I will take a closer look and make sure there are no signs of orange peel. This side all looks good. Let's move on over to the other side. Looking across there, looks good. Going a little closer, and that all looks good. Let's take a look at the tire condition and make sure that the tire size and brand all matches. The date code's not real obvious on this, but I can clearly tell by the tread and everything, these are really new tires in great shape. We'll just walk around and make sure that everything matches up, and it does. And the condition is all the same. Now I will check out the wheels. This one's missing a cap there. Otherwise, I see normal wear and tear on all the wheels. Okay, now I will check the rear hatch. I want to make sure the struts are in good shape and the hatch stays up. That is looking solid on both sides. And now I will do the same thing for the rear window. It's a bit sticky going up, but it's holding tight, so I'm calling that good. Now I will check all the doors to make sure they all shut nice and tight. And I will look closely at the door jambs to make sure the paint matches and there are no signs of repainting or rust. This door squeaks a bit, but everything looks good. It shuts nice and tight. I will fast forward through the rest of the doors. They all have a snug fit, the paint matches, and there are no signs of rust. And one more step for the outside is a closer look at all the glass to make sure it's in good condition. I will run my hand over the windshield. There's one minor pit in the windshield, not a big concern. Let's go look at all the windows. We'll fast forward through that. They all check out. And finally, the rear view mirrors. Looks like the driver mirror's been replaced, but it looks fine. Okay, all the glass is in great shape. Now let's do a couple more checks for rust on the exterior. I will check all the body panels. I like to give them some knocks to check for sound variations. Some people use magnets on this step. We will speed through this check. A little rust spot here on the rear hatch. Still sounds solid there. Everything else checks out just fine. I will also check each wheel well for signs of rust. In the interest of time, I will show you just one of them, but I did check all and they're all in great shape. Next, we need to check the body section right below each door, which is a common place rust develops. We'll check one side and then the other. No signs of rust anywhere. Now I will inspect the underbody for rust. I will fast forward through this inspection. I start at the left front of the vehicle and then move down the left side and then take a look at the back. You can see the spare tire wheel is a little rusty. And now I will go up the right side and then finish up at the left front. I did not see any significant rust spots or any rust on the frame, so no concerns with this check. Now we will check the underside for fluid leaks. Uh-oh, we have a lot of oil leaking there. That's the rear main seal where the transmission connects to the engine, and it clearly needs to be replaced. I will keep moving back and check the transmission and pay particular attention to its oil pan. All good there. Now the transfer case, nice and clean. And finally, the rear differential, that looks good. Let's go back inside and check to see if everything is working in there. First thing I'm going to do is check to make sure that the lock and unlock works with the key fob, and that's working properly. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heated seats on so we make sure that they're working. I'll do the driver and passenger seat, and we'll check those later. I'll also check to make sure they switch from high to low. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the rear defrost to make sure it stays illuminated, which tells me it's working. All right, let's check the front climate control. First, the fan speeds. Uh-oh, looks like we got a little problem there. Number 5, the highest speed does not work, but it does work for 1 through 4. Now I'm going to check the airflow controls. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to make sure that it's working on both the left and right side, because you can definitely have differences there with one working properly and the other not. So I will go through all the settings for the airflow controls and check to make sure that it's flowing in the right places. And it is there for the defrost and everything else, left and right. Okay, I've turned off that rear defrost. Also, the seat heater is working, so I'm turning that off. And now we're going to check the controls for the rear. First, the fan, all the fan speeds. I'll go back there and feel, make sure that it's flowing properly. And then we're going to start checking the airflow controls. And I'll go back and feel and make sure that it's flowing in the right places. Heat on the bottom. And we'll go back up front, make sure that we're switching back between heat and AC properly. All right, on to the window controls. I want to check to make sure the auto up and down is working, and it's not. I can see that this particular control has been replaced. So that's kind of typical for aftermarket. That might not always work. Now we'll check all the windows, driver, passenger, right rear, that's working, and left rear is all working there. And now we'll do the rear side view mirrors. Left side is working, and the right side is working. And I want to go back and check when I switch back to AC from heat up front, it was still a little hot, but now it's working good, so we're good to go. All right, on to the locks on the driver's side. Lock and unlock is working. All the doors there, I can see that. And I'm checking the low setting on the heat and then also the passenger seat heater. and that's working. Let's check window and lock controls on the other doors. Window's working good here and the lock works. That window button's a little recessed there. We need to kind of reinstall that. Not a big deal. And that window works fine. Now we're going to crank up the stereo and see how it's working. The speaker's good. Uh-oh, don't hear anything there. That one's not working. This one is good. And this one is also good. And the subwoofer is putting out some bass. Okay, moving on to the rear audio control. I don't really use this in my Suburban, so if you want to check this out, you need to bring a pair of headphones. And now the front wipers and the wash, that's working. And the rear wiper, both speeds, 1 and 2, and the wash. Good to go there. All right, I want to check, make sure that the dash lights are dimming properly. And when I see that change there in the transmission indicator, I know it's working. And the interior lights in the front and for the middle passengers there, those are working. And the sunroof, look at that blue sky and make sure it's going to close properly. And it does. And then I want to check for leaks. I'm going to feel around the entire lip there, make sure there's no moisture. And then I'll check the headliner for any signs of water stains. None there. All right, front driver's seat controls, all working there, including the lumbar support. And we'll do the same thing over on the passenger side. We will check all the controls there, forward and backward, the backrest, and the lumbar. It's all good. And we'll want to check this rear seat. It is a known issue where this fails on the Suburban, so I want to make sure that's working. And then all of our power outlets in the front and in the back and for those middle passengers there. That is all working. Let's go back outside and check out the lights. First, the headlights. Both of those are operating. And now the brights. Nice and bright on both sides. And now the fog lights. Looks like we've got a broken lens there on the passenger side, but they're both working. Blinkers, left front, left back, right front. Brake lights, along with the third brake light, and our hazards. All the lights are good to go. Okay, one more check, and then we will get it out on the road. I'm going to check the transmission shifting to make sure it is working properly. First, I'm going to shift into reverse. A little bit of a clunk there. Let's try that again. Yep, I'm going to note that. Now let's go into drive. That's nice and smooth. And again, we'll do that one more time. Nice and smooth. All right, let's check the four-wheel drive system. We're going to shift from too high to auto four-wheel drive. I'm going to zoom in because those lights are kind of hard to see. That is engaged, so we are good to go there. Now I'm going to shift to neutral. So we can then shift into 4 high and make sure that engages properly. I'll put it in drive, make sure that's engaged, and it is. And then we'll go back to neutral and check 4 low. And again, put it in drive, make sure that's engaging, and it did. Now we'll go back, neutral, 4 high, engaged, and then back to 2 high. The transmission is good to go, so let's go for a test drive. I am headed over to a nearby highway so I can open it up and fully test it out. We have a green light, so let's hit the pedal. The acceleration is strong, I don't see any smoke out the back, and the transmission is shifting up to the gears very smoothly. We're at highway speed and there are no vibrations or whining noises. I am coming up on a red light, so I will brake fairly hard and see if there's any pull left or right or brake noise. That was all very solid. I will head around this tight curve and see how it does. It took that really well and handled great. Now I'm going to manually shift through the gears to see how smoothly the transmission is working. We'll start out in first, then up to second, and then third. Very nice. Now we'll go down through the gears. Third is good, and so is second. I have a spot here where I can safely check the brakes one more time with a harder and complete stop. No pulls either way, and a solid stop. The steering wheel is a bit crooked, but it seems to be tracking well. I will make sure by safely taking my hands off the wheel for a few seconds. It is tracking just fine. I am also checking the steering column to make sure I don't feel any up and down movement, and I don't, but I do feel the steering shaft rattling a bit, which is a common issue, but not a major one. I will push the tow haul button to make sure it engages. All good. Let's check the steering to make sure it is smooth and easy and responding properly. Yes, it is. And also make sure there's no slack in the steering. Good to go. I'm going to go over some speed bumps to check for suspension clunks or squeaks. I will hit a couple pretty fast. That all sounds fine. And then a couple slowly. Also fine. I will turn the wheel right and left while at a stop to see if there's any whining noises. That is all quiet. Now I'm going to make a slow and very sharp turn left and right, back left and back right. Again, I'm listening for any noises or clunks. It's nice and quiet. And now I will do the same thing in reverse. All quiet again. Let's check all the gauges and make sure everything is working. Temperature, check. Volts 14 plus, check. Fuel gauge, check. No dash warning lights. Idle is consistent. And oil pressure at a good level and responsive to increasing RPMs. Check, check, and check. I will see if the parking brake is holding. Nope. Pretty common. The cable stretches and you lose the ability to adjust to tighten up the drum brake. Let's go back under the hood for some final checks. I left it running and we'll check the transmission fluid. Level and color look good. Battery's in good condition. No date code marked, but it looks pretty new. Let's make sure the fan is running and see if we smell anything burning or see any smoke coming off the engine. Nothing to report there. I will see if I can find an owner's manual in the glove box. I'm not seeing it. I'll ask about that. And finally, we will scan it to see if there are any fault codes. Excellent. No fault codes. Okay, we are all done with the inspection and test drive. I know that was extensive and I realize you may not be able to or even want to complete all the steps I went through, but I wanted to cover off on everything so you can decide what is important to you and what the seller will allow, and then you can inspect accordingly. Based on our findings, the main things that need to be addressed and taken into consideration are the lift or tick. You can check out my common repairs page at suburbancamping.com for my thoughts on this issue. The rear main seal oil leak. This is a big job, so you need to know exactly what it will cost to fix it, and if it's not factored into the price, it should be. The valve cover oil leaks and the parking brake are minor jobs, but should be factored into the price. The missing speed on the climate control fan could be major if the fan is going out, but I did not hear any signs of the motor struggling or making noises, so I will note it, but I don't think it needs to be factored into the price. The scratch and scuff on the right rear quarter panel, the rear speaker not working, the missing right front wheel lug nut cover, and steering column rattle are all minor, but should be pointed out and maybe worth knocking off a few bucks, but not worth arguing over. And finally, we want to find out if they have the owner's manual, and if available, review all maintenance records. That's it. Now all that is left to do is to negotiate a great deal on this Suburban. I hope this video will help you buy a great used Suburban. If you learned something from it, please subscribe. And once you buy a Suburban and perhaps decide to use it as a camper, you can learn how to do that at suburbancamping.com. Thank you very much.